Well, hey guys, and welcome to Janet being Janet. Okay, today she's going to go over something that happened in the church, and then she's going to go over coffee and diets. So, y'all, I hope you enjoy my little edits I put in here.
Hello. I'm gonna wait for a few seconds until some of you join. Hello. Hi, everyone. Okay. Glad to see a few of you showing up. I haven't been live as much. I was like, okay, so today was weird because first off, I had to be a mom and we had to go to the doctor, and that was fun. Momming. Anyone else working mom? Okay. So then I was going to do some videos on my YouTube, but obviously I got stuck on some other topics. So this is kind of what's been going on, and I just want to share this and just give you a sense of what I've been learning and why I kind of held off on sharing this information. So I'm going to turn off the comments real quick here, just because I want to make sure to give this the sort of seriousness that it deserves. So a lot of people have been wondering, like, why we're so heavily focused on this group and what is the reason why we have been continuing to share about it on social media. You know that in last month, the Wilkins family came forward and revealed that their daughter Miranda was involved in a group, and they felt like they were basically holding her. They said that she had been abducted, or they felt like she was being trapped by this group. And there has been quite a bit of media attention now. There was an article that came out today by former member Lydia Chung, who shared her opinions and her experience with the church, and sort of giving you guys an understanding of what she went through. Lydia is so brave to share her story. She is also, she went through hell, and what they did to her is horrible. But there's lots of victims here. And something that we were just not talking a lot about, because first of all, when I have been doing my research here, before I report anything, I want to make sure that I can corroborate stories. I want to make sure that I hear the same story from different people. I want other people to make sure, like, to tell me, like, did this actually happen? Is this a thing? Like, what happened here? What's going on? And every former member that I talked to, there was this huge incident that had happened in 2008. And that actually coincided with Lydia's, like, when she said that she left, and so in a lawsuit. So there was a lot of rumblings, and a lot of the people that I was speaking to, they were just really traumatized by what had happened in 2008, and they didn't want to speak, or they were overwhelmed by what had happened. And they needed time, and they needed to collect themselves. First off, I want to just say thank you to those members that have reached out to me, the former members that experienced this and went through this. I'm really sorry that this happened to you. You did not deserve any of this. And you're going to continue to help other people by sharing your experiences. Before I go into what happened, there's been a lot of questions about why more people aren't coming forward. And right now, I will say that with the people that I'm talking to, their biggest fear is retaliation. So a lot of people are afraid to go public because, one, they're afraid of their businesses being targeted. They have fears for their own safety. They don't know if there's fears of, like, retaliation against their businesses. They were highly controlled in an environment where they felt like they had no control. And then many of them are alleging that they were. So to go out publicly is very hard for them. And so for me, it's not my place to push them and say, you need to come out. You know, it's not my job to say, you need to go on the record. My job is to, build trust with them and, listen to them and try to be as delicate as possible with their stories. So I have been holding back on kind of sharing a lot of the details because, one, I recognize that some of these stories are not just mine. You know, these are not my experiences. I was not the victim in the situation. I was not victimized by this group, but there's also an urgency because there's still this there's still these weird people online that seem to believe that this isn't a cult and that people aren't being hurt and that we should just let these people live their lives. Except there's people that have left this group who are completely and utterly traumatized. The amount of people I've talked to that have been in tears, crying, dealing with the what I can only describe as PTSD, as this whole, like, they're all of the trauma that they've experienced for years is coming back to them as they are remembering the horrible experiences they went to when they were at this church. And then you have family members that are that I'm speaking with too, from multiple family members. I have family members of people who are the leaders now. So, you know, everyone is so heavily focused on, you know, all these other players that are the bad guys, but the real only bad guy here is Robert Shin. Everyone else is a victim. Robert is really the only one, in my opinion, that is the bad guy. Everyone else is doing what he wants. And that's how all the former members are describing it. So even though Daniel looks like a bad guy now, he was once a kid, a 19-year-old that got swooped into this because a family friend made him feel like his parents were evil and turned him against his family. And Shirley was a 17-year-old that was in high school that, you know, had a rough upbringing, and she didn't have the best support systems within her family. And so she came into this, and this is her family. That's the only thing that she knows. And he has been really preying on young people who are lacking support, coming from maybe a little bit of brokenness. There's quite a few people that have struggled significantly with mental health issues or have autism that have been horribly hurt throughout this process. And it's sad because they didn't feel like they had, for years, a lot of these people felt like this is just what it was. There was never going to be justice. There was never going to be anyone to expose what happened. There was never going to be a space for them to share their stories. So if you can imagine holding on to all of that trauma for such a long time, and then it's all out publicly now, and then you've got all these people saying, well, everyone needs to come forward, and they're still trying to decompress and be like, wait a minute, this is really happening. We're finally getting this out there. And then it's, how do we do this the right way? Because as soon as someone goes public, they become a target of this group, and then they also have to navigate that negativity that they've spent such a long time getting away from. With that being said, the people that I've talked to that are survivors of this group, and also the family members that have lost family, I have spoken to so many family members from all the different people that are involved in this, from people that were formerly in it to people that still have family members in it. And the one thing that's permeating is the sadness, because there are sisters and brothers and moms and dads and cousins and grandparents that miss their loved one, that their loved one has cut them off, blocked them, will not speak to them, will not interact with them, will not return their calls, will not return their emails. This is not just Miranda ignoring her family. This is Daniel not contacting his family. It's Shirley not contacting her family. It's Hannah not talking to her sisters. It's there's Chrissy, there's Priscilla, there's all these different people that have cut off family. And the one common denominator is Robert Shin. He has convinced them, as Lydia said, that the outside world is satanic and they can trust no one, and that their family members are Satan and evil. So in 2008, with that being said, thank you to all of you that are trusting me with your stories. Thank you to those of you for opening up to me. I'm going to share this because in 2008, this story has been circulating, and I was like, well, I need to actually get this out here. So apparently this is what happens. So Robert was in, so this is coming from at least 4 former members, okay? And I got different variations, but they all had sort of the same story I had to like tease through because they believe lied to him. But this is what happened. So Catherine, according to one of the members, was allowing girls that, well, I guess it starts back for further years. This is what the member said. Robert had been married to Esther, and Esther and he decided he wanted to divorce her. The former member said that Robert then decided that he was interested in starting relationships with some of these other women that were in the church. The issue is that Robert was in his mid to late 40s, and these women were like 20, 19, 21, girls that were barely adults that knew next to nothing about the world and were relying on him and looking to him as like a father and like a spiritual leader. And he had, according to the source and multiple former members, about 4 or 5 women that he was sort of grooming. They were giving them presents. They were taking them out to go on shopping trips. And then the girls were seen going into a locked room with him where he would say that he was getting massages from them. And he would claim that only the best hands, according to the former members, could touch him because only certain hands with the best massage skills could touch the holy man. And touching the holy man was, a blessing. Behind closed doors, what was happening was apparently inappropriate contact between Robert and these women. And one of the former individuals said that he was promising that he was going to marry these women, that they would be the next woman of God as long as they would do things for him. So Catherine apparently knew this was going on, but she was sort of just letting it slide. But apparently there was an argument between Catherine and Robert around her daughter and the way that Shirley or someone was treating her daughter, who was a mentor. There is a tier and a hierarchy in this group. So there's Robert, then there's mentors, then there's sub-mentors, then there's church members. And so as you move up and you're more committed and have more power, you're all under Robert and they're all doing what Robert says, but the mentors are kind of dictating what the people that are following them are. So with Miranda, I was told that Chloe is her mentor right now, and and Chloe's mentor is Hannah. So she's getting sort of like indirectly mentored through Hannah. That makes sense. And Hannah is the woman of God. So people were like, you made a video about the coffee and that's a reach. And I'm like, really? No, it's not, because this is what Hannah drinks, and they are told to admire and to be like their worship, their man and woman of God. So anyways, he has these women going behind closed doors, and one of the victims tells me that he's promising that he's going to marry them as long as he favors from them. That was their allegation. And so none of the women knew about one another. They didn't know that he was promising these things to one another. They were all, again, very young and sort of brainwashed to believe that he's like the holy man. And they, after Catherine gets in a fight and Robert refuses to do whatever she wants, she confronts the girls, and they all go together to the church in 2008. And she basically tells in front of the whole congregation that Robert was married to Shirley, which was something that they were keeping secret. And that while married to Shirley, he was also promising other women that they were going to be married to him. And then these women were giving him sexual favors behind closed doors. And it was basically like an abuse of power because he was using his position as a pastor and like luring them in with like knowing that he's already married, right? So he's married to one woman, telling these other women, well, you're going to be my wife as long as you do these things. That's the allegation. So Robert apparently gets up and he tells the church that yes, he was inappropriate with these women. He acted inappropriately. He claimed that there was no penetration. But multiple former members said that he told the church he has a high desire for, and it's always something that he's wanted. He has a high, and so he just wants to have sex time, and he loves beautiful women. And it's okay though, because he is a fallen man, and he's not perfect, right? He made a mistake, and he's deeply sorry, and he's apologizing to the women, and multiple people that were there called this super traumatic. And the women, some of them got up and they accused him, and they were yelling at him, and they were horrified and outraged. And they, once he confessed to this, left the church. So the 4 victims that he was doing this to, they decided to leave. And he then apparently tried to downplay what happened with those that stayed. And so those that stayed kind of just believed that it was just the young girls throwing themselves at him. And it was all nothing. It wasn't a big deal. It was much to do about nothing. And that was kind of it. So he then Shirley stayed with him for a period of time, said the people that stayed, and then she eventually was removed by Robert. She started working a lot, and Robert just didn't want her anymore. So he replaced her very abruptly with Hannah. Hannah was loyal to him and decided to stay with him, so he promised apparently to reward her for her loyalty. By the way, her sister was one of the victims. So her sister was one of the women that was the massages, and she had been previously victimized by Robert through that, according to the people that I spoke to. And so her sister left, but Hannah stayed. And that happened with multiples. There was another group of sisters, and one of the sisters was a victim, and 2 of the sisters stayed. So, and then those people went on to become victims as well, according to the former members. So he has had this sort of pattern of using his position of power to justify these inappropriate relationships, and he has a specific type that he likes. So all of these members have horrible trauma from this, are deeply affected by this. And I know that there's so much more to what I'm saying. I'm very high level. I'm sure Robert will deny this, and he has a right to deny this. I'm simply sharing this is what these members said. I'm sure Robert will say that that's not what happened. I was just maybe inappropriate or whatever it is. End of the day, if you're a pastor, you should not be sleeping with your parishioners, and you shouldn't be abusing power to get people to sleep with you or to give you. So, alleged. Okay. So, why this matters now is because the former members don't feel like he has stopped. They feel like he's probably on the same trajectory. And there's deep concerns that Miranda is targeted. He has a specific look. He likes them to have their hair short. They go through a process where they cut their hair and they have them dye their hair. She's getting a lot more attention than the other women. And she's also being mentored through Hannah. So there is deep concern for those that have been traumatized and hurt through this process, that this hasn't stopped, and they want it to stop. And it's going to take time for those people to come forward. But if you think that, the story's going to get old, or because, you're not getting a new family member that speaks out, I can't tell you that's not how stories work. You can't force people to speak out. I can only come out and tell you what they're telling me, and then what they're telling me I can share. I'm not sharing things that are not, I'm not sharing things that they're saying you can't say this, they're saying, yes, you can say this. This is what happened. This is my experience. I want this to stop. I wish I could have pressed charges. No charges were filed. Nobody sued him for this. He was never arrested for this. So from a criminal standpoint, he did not break the law. So that was sort of the confession of what broke the church up, apparently, according to 4 separate members I spoke to. So Robert now has a new influx of people, and they're very naive, and he's cut many of them off in the same way that these previous people have been cut off. And then he has these other people that have been in for 20 plus years now that are his little puppets. And so he's kind of like their puppet master. And it's horrible because you're watching this play out on social media, and you're seeing videos of B-Dash and Miranda trying to act like everything is normal when we know it's not. And you're seeing responses from the members, and they're yelling at me. I mean, Concrete has been in my comments multiple times, yelling at me, saying that I'm lying. And then I say to him, like, why don't you go ask your pastor about these alleged allegations, please? And then he goes away. So I don't even know if that's the other problem, is I don't know if they're actually the ones that are posting, because former members have said that their emails were hacked, their phones were hacked, they didn't have access to their phones. When they wanted to leave, they were put in isolation. I mean, one person described having to escape in the middle of the night. So you have to realize that this isn't like, we're not making this up. And I hope people understand that this is a very serious situation, and we want the authorities to do something about this. We want the IRS to step in. We would love the FBI to investigate. We would love the LAPD to investigate. And right now, all we can go off is like the hearsay. And until a victim reports a crime, like, we can't force an investigation. We can ask, but I know the issues for multiple family members have been, well, you're not the victim, so you can't report the crime. And then if they go there and he's got them brainwashed to saying that nothing's wrong, it's like a catch-22. So that's where we are. Allegedly, opinions, facts, whatever. That's my interviews with the people. And then in regards to like all of their fake, like spammy hate accounts, I'm not paying attention to a lot of that. I'm also not paying up a lot of attention to me being the bad guy here. If this wasn't a real story, the Rolling Stone would have covered it. The Sun wouldn't be interviewing Lydia. You wouldn't have the Daily Mail covering it. You wouldn't have Insider. Business Insider is presently doing a humongous investigation. Like, they interviewed me, they're interviewing other people. I know the New Yorker, or the New York Magazine, is doing a huge piece on this as well. So there's multiple outlets that are doing this, and like literally every production company in the world has contacted me. I swear, like, they all want this out there. So with the kinds of crimes that are happening with like you have to either be a witness to it, like, so you have to physically see that the crime happened, or you have to be the victim. And if you're not witnessing the crime and you're not seeing the physical, you can't like report it. You could it's tricky because they're adults. If they were children, it would be so much different. I think you need to stop talking about how more and more people need to speak up. I think the more comments that we see, like, it just needs 1 or 2 people to speak up to turn this into a Harvey Weinstein situation. Again, it's underestimating like the severity of the trauma that these people have. I hope in time that these people will come forward, because I feel like when you hear their stories from their own mouths, you'll be as emotionally like impacted as I have been. But they have to work through their trauma, and they have to get to a space where they're comfortable doing it. I don't know if Ronan Farrow, I don't know if he's the one that's working on it. I just know that the New York Magazine is working on one. And I know that the Hollywood Reporter was also looking into it. It has, and that's another thing, is like, as we're getting information that's coming out, their email accounts of these people's are getting hacked. Someone was saying that they feel like they've been gang stalked. Like, there's just so many unknowns. Yeah, like victims need to feel safe on their own terms to disclose. Thank you. So the biggest thing that feels a lot like NXIVM to me, outside of like, they don't have branding, right? So they're not branding the girls and they're not like putting a brand on the girls. But in a sense, there's a level of collateral because you're giving personal details about your life to someone. And so you're sending weekly emails to your pastor who is then using that against you when you want to leave, or, you know, placing you in isolation, or taking away privileges from you if you don't obey. I know that a private investigator did look into it from Miranda's side, but a lot of the stuff that's coming out now is stuff that they weren't privy to because former members hadn't spoken out yet. I was like kind of shocked about the coffee too. I didn't even realize that that was like like anything specific. Basically what the former member said was that, so Robert doesn't like, they teach about not having to spend money, and they think that like wasteful spending is wrong. And so instead of eating out, the church has a Costco membership. Not weird at all. I mean, lots of churches have them. And so they make their special coffees at home, and this is a recipe that they like. But yeah, using collateral in the terms of like private information to expose someone and then taking away their information when the coffee sounds really sweet is what I think. Like, I don't know, just sounds like a lot of sugar. Yeah, the agave that they put in is a Kirkland brand. But when I saw how much agave they were putting in, and like, which is straight sugar, and then you have all of the syrup, I was like, oh my God, that must be so sweet. A lot of the groceries are purchased at Costco and like dispersed to the groups, or they use the Costco membership and then they like buy in bulk, and then the bulk is distributed to the different houses. That's kind of what they've said. It's a lot of caffeine, and apparently Robert doesn't like women that are overweight. And so weight and appearance are a huge part of things for him. He likes them to be thin. Multiple members have said that if they gained weight, they were called chubby or fat or ridiculed, put on diets, had their diets controlled and restricted. Chloe drinks the same coffee. If you look at photos, you can tell they've all lost a lot of weight, even B-Dash. Miranda's lost a lot as well. Yeah, apparently Robert likes blondes. So they limit their diets, and then they also aren't allowed to sleep a lot. So one of the former members said that they work on like 5 hours of sleep, and then they're only eating like very regimented diets. And because Robert doesn't like people to be overweight, because he thinks lazy people are lazy, apparently. So they're not sleeping a lot, so they're sleep deprived, and then they're not eating enough, which is another easy way to manipulate people. When you're not sleeping enough, you're susceptible to being manipulated just because you're tired and your brain isn't functioning at like the levels. And then if you're hungry on top of that, your brain and your body doesn't have the energy. So critical thinking is hard. So Kelly, if you want to make this about this being an LA thing, you're missing the whole point. And I don't know what to say. So again, so yeah, NXIVM controlled calories. They also controlled sleep. Remember on NXIVM, they had to text whenever, and like they had to respond to texts whenever they got a text. They're encouraged to contact their mentors and text them with any questions or concerns daily. So it's interesting. Someone said, it's like North Korea. They keep the people starving to avoid revolt against the government. It's interesting that you would bring that up, because a former member who also happens to be Korean said that the tactics that they're using are actually very comparable to the way that the North Korean government controls their people. And I think someone in this group has family from North Korea. I'm not sure who, but yeah, they did bring that up, that it's not uncommon. It's like how North Korea treats people. I don't know. So first off, Kylie owns that dance studio. So this idea that she's not affiliated with her dance studio is probably not true. It's more than likely that it's removed so that there's not the connection online. They delete anything. So if you report something, they delete it. Like I share a video about an innocuous video that Isaiah made 7 years ago, and they delete it. Like I find a photograph from 7 years ago of Shirley, and she deletes it. They delete everything. Like, I've never seen a group do this before, at all. Like, literally at all. Like, the IBLP doesn't delete shit. Like, it's all out there, which is like what I'm used to. I'm used to the IBLP having all their shit out there, right? They don't delete stuff. And this is just like everything is deleted. And I think one of the exposed accounts, whether it was Cult Sucky or Sucky Cults or 7M, did a thing on their social blades and noticed that all of them were deleting a lot of posts. Yeah, so I was listening to the SoundCloud of their former worship, and they literally deleted it within minutes of me listening. I was listening for half an hour. It was gone. Deleted in the middle of me listening. Shirley has put her entire social media at private, because Shirley's Instagram contains a lot of... She's like into tactical training, and she likes... I don't know if I might have liked it or something. I don't know how they knew I was listening. I have no idea. Maybe they got notification. I did talk about the Hillsong documentary. She did not get her money back. No. Okay. So that's what I have for tonight. My weird angles. All right. So, they have to submit, they have to die to themselves. I mean, they privated Crucified. They got rid of deleted videos off of the Crucified page. I feel like if you're not doing anything wrong and you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to hide, so you don't need to delete. I mean, I can understand not wanting some stuff out there, but it's like anything that's found gets deleted. Like, if Shirley stands by her, doesn't matter that she has, plenty of my followers and are responsible. So why does it matter if that's what she stands by and she's not doing anything illegal and everything is on the up and up? Why does it matter if her Instagram is public or private? Oh, on my ring? Thank you. I think the privating might have had to do with the Clippers too. Okay, so that's what I have. And just, oh, I forgot. Some of you guys had brought up Slavic's fundraiser, and we all have a choice to be private. We do. And if that's the only thing that you took away from this, that's on you. The fundraisers. So Slavic did a weird fundraiser for Ukraine, and he said that his dad is a mayor and all the money was going to go through Ukraine, and he set it up on this website that is not as legitimate as GoFundMe, and a former member told me to beware. They almost feel like Robert's going to take some of that money. That's their opinion. Twitch is a dancer, and Ellen's always had dancers on, so it's really not that complicated. I don't think you're going to see them on Ellen anymore. Retaliation. Well, my name is getting smeared, and there's people pretending like I'm being obsessed and I'm lying. What I'm actually doing is trying to cover a story in real time, and it's extremely exhausting. I haven't been able to really cover much of anything else because I have so many people, from the time I wake up until the time I go to bed, there's something in my inbox from someone affected by this group. It is literally, I don't even have to go find it anymore. People are bringing it to me. Oh, no, I haven't made a tree. I was actually working on that so you know the names. And then the other thing was, a lot of people were like, well, why aren't the family members speaking out? A lot of them are afraid to speak out. They think that if they speak out, their family member is going to not trust them and be further pushed into the cult. So you have to just respect them and where they're at and let them know that when they're ready to speak out, there's a place for them to do that and share. And if they don't, can't force them to. No, they don't all live on the church campus. The church actually doesn't have a campus. They only have one apartment building there. The rest of them live in housing that is set up through the church. They also deleted the Q&A between Isaiah and B-Dash and Miranda and Reno. They deleted the Q&A. They're deleting just dumb things. I don't know why. All right. So I will save this No, I don't know. Yeah, that one's gone. That video they deleted. The Q&A that Miranda and him did is gone. Isaiah was in that video too. All right, you guys.